The agenda is sponsored by Newcastle County Government.
One of Delaware's fastest growing communities, if not the fastest growing community, right here in Newcastle County. That's going to be Middletown. We're going to talk to its representative, Kevin Hensley, today. We're going to talk about its infrastructure, its growth, and its plans, and how it got to where it is now. All of that right here on the agenda. Representative Kevin Hensley has made it to the agenda. Welcome, sir.
Well, it's great to be here, and I thank you for the opportunity. And wasn't a bad ride up. It's a beautiful day, and just thrilled to be with you all today.
You're not only a representative, you're my representative.
I am. Yep. And go ahead.
Tell us where do you represent?
Sure. So basically, I represent an area of southern Newcastle County, parts of Middletown, town of Odessa, as well as parts of Townsend. Pretty much run the 13 corridor from just south of the bridge all the way down to the northern tip of Smyrna.
Okay. And I know that that area is expanding. I have been a part of it for the past 12 years, right? There's been so much going on. Right. What are we doing to deal with that growth from a legislative standpoint?
Sure. So from a legislative standpoint, it's a bit of a challenge. I mean, we basically, with the growth needs to be funding in order to fund some upgrades to the infrastructure. One of the biggest challenges that I've seen in my tenure in Dover has been that we really, frankly, tend to play more defense and offense as it relates to that growth with infrastructure. For instance, as you're well aware, we've got a project underway right in the town of Middletown, widening Route 299. That project, frankly, should have been started a decade or longer ago. So I find that we're constantly playing catch up, not to mention the overcrowding in the schools and other areas that we try desperately in Dover, working with our partners in the county and the school district to try to manage that growth. But I oftentimes find that we're behind the eight ball.
So what type of planning is going on, or what planning didn't go on? How can we improve the situation?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of the growth that we're seeing in the newer neighborhoods are plans that were approved a decade or decades ago. Okay. That are finally now coming to fruition. In other words, you had developers that had purchased ground, then we had the recession, and things slowed down, of course, and things of that nature. So everything was just sort of put on hold. Now we're seeing this tremendous growth, this rapid growth, and a lot of folks that I talk with say, well, Kevin, wait a minute, why do we just approve this? Frankly, it was already approved back in the day. And so now with the Unified Development Code that went into law years ago from the county perspective, in order for a new development to be approved, you have to have what's called school concurrency. In other words, you have to have adequate room in the schools to absorb the anticipated additional growth, which, as you know very well, having kids in the schools, we don't have. So what we're tasked with now is figuring out, and that's why the district seems to have to go after referendum after referendum in order to try to stay ahead of the curve in building these new schools. But at some point in time, these developments that were approved pre-Unified Development Code will be built out, and then for all intents and purposes, maybe with the exception of a 55 plus where they don't see the impact on the schools yet, it's on the other areas of infrastructure, but we're not going to see the level of growth once those developments are built out that were approved decades ago.
So do you, this may be a silly question, okay, but are you seeing large expansion on the way, or are things kind of leveling out as far as development in that area?
What we're seeing is a little bit of both. We're seeing a leveling out on the east side, which is the area that I represent. However, on the west side of Middletown, over by the Summit Airport, again, developments are popping up that have been on the approved list for years and years and years and years, which are causing challenges. So, in our side of the world, on the east side, we're pretty well built out, but the west side's going to start to see some growth.
We're seeing, I know I'm seeing 2 schools to be built. Is that right?
More than, yeah. So basically, there's one school that was knocked down and being renovated, Meredith Middle School. Then it seems like every other week I'm going to a beam signing ceremony, honest to gosh, for a new school or a new refurbishment. We have a brand new kindergarten center there at Brick Mill. Over by Summit, there's going to be 2 new schools. So yeah, and then of course we have the Odessa campus over my way in the Odessa area, which is the only campus in this country that I'm aware of that is K through 12. Those young people will start kindergarten there. They'll never leave that campus. We're seeing probably 1 to 2 new schools a year has been the pace. I can't imagine it continuing. Fortunately, the district has owned a lot of this ground for quite some time, so it's not a matter of property acquisition, but it's a matter of going out to the voters and saying, hey, are you willing to increase your taxes for the purposes of building a new school?
So we have it, we've had it already, we've had it for years, now we actually need to do something with it.
Absolutely.
So with all this development, again, comes congestion, comes just drama as far as bringing so many souls into the neighborhood and being able to move from an infrastructure standpoint. Hint, 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 infrastructure. There's so much of it there. There's so much money available. I'm seeing new development of residential homes, but when it comes down to, I feel that my tax dollar and how's that being shoveled jobs on the ground in Middletown, improving my daily life.
Well, yeah, and here's basically the challenge that we have. And you bring up a great point, and it's one, as you can imagine, that comes up quite a bit throughout the district. Our current tax structure is set up such that when you and I pay our tax bills every year, 80-some-odd% of that money, of those monies, are going to the school district for the operation of the schools, with the remainder going to county services, paramedics, and things of that nature. So I see an opportunity, particularly in the fiscal environment that we're in, i.e., as you well know, I mean, we had a tremendous surplus last year. And I tried desperately, and I was successful in getting some projects approved for the community that I'm certainly happy to share in some more detail, but enhancements to existing facilities. But you're right, we need to be working on road projects, both main arteries as well as within neighborhoods. We have, again, aging infrastructure. We have 20-plus-year-old neighborhoods, some of them even 30 to 40-year-old neighborhoods. The roads have never been touched. Myself as a legislator, I get a set amount of money set aside every year for the purposes of dealing with neighborhood roads. The challenge comes in, and one of the initiatives that I'm going to push next year when we go back into session, all of us as legislators get the same amount of money, irrespective of how many road miles you have in your district to maintain. I'll give you a perfect example. My good friends here in the city of Wilmington, they get the same amount of money that I do. Some of them have next to no miles to maintain because the city maintains them. Meanwhile, last I counted, I have over 70 miles cumulative of roads to maintain just within your neighborhood and my neighborhood and all the other neighborhoods throughout the area. So as a state, we need to give an increased emphasis on infrastructure. We tend to pick those projects where we might be able to get some matching funds, whether it be from the feds or whatever, and that's very important, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, a lot of our current infrastructure is suffering because we're neglecting a lot of projects that literally are near you and near me and near everybody in the community. And with the increased traffic flow, I mean, several times a month, I'm getting phone calls from constituents quite upset because of the timing of traffic lights being off.
Right. It takes 25 minutes to get from one side of Middletown to the other side of Middletown.
You're absolutely correct.
And that's not during anything special that's going on.
That's right.
And not on a weekend, because that's a whole different story.
Let DART do the driving. DART First State provides transportation that is clean, safe, reliable, and affordable. Plan your trip and get real-time bus information with the free DART Transit app. Scan your phone to pay your fare with the free DART Pass app. So what are you waiting for? Try transit today. Visit dartfirststate.com or call 1-800-652-DART.
This message is brought to you by Newcastle County Government.
Many wonder, what is a variant? A variant is a mutation or a change in the genetic sequence of the virus. Some of our methods of treating COVID-19 become ineffective. If we were to simply get vaccinated, we could decrease the spread and the likelihood that a mutation would form in the first place. Let's get vaccinated.
And that's not during anything special that's going on.
That's right.
And not on a weekend, because that's a whole different story. Right. So what is being earmarked down in Dover to help us resolve this, i.e. from the surplus, from the bond bills that have been passed to deal specifically with infrastructure?
Sure, so basically we are identifying through the bond bill specific projects like the widening of 299 going through Middletown. That was partially funded in a bond, in a previous year's bond bill. So this year I'm going to be looking at bond bill funding for the purposes of flooding that we've talked about previously in the Odessa area, a road that was closed because it caved in due to flooding underneath the road. But here I'm doing the best that I can to identify certain projects that need to be done. We need to collectively develop a more holistic approach. In other words,
tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so basically, perfect example. You mentioned the coming through Middletown, and quite frankly, I'm not sure. I mean, myself, not sure about you. I'll avoid that area at all costs. And it used to be a rush hour phenomenon. Right. Now it's a 24/7 phenomenon. So I'll avoid it. Well, I'm not the only one trying to avoid it. So now what we've done is we've clogged up, corresponding roadways surrounding those main arteries with folks like myself and a lot of others that are saying, well, the heck with this, I'm not going to wait, so I'm just going to do an end run around here, which in essence provides more traffic.
Or it's going to cost me $5 one way on the bypass in order to do it.
Exactly, right. Exactly.
That's, to me, that's very frustrating as a taxpayer. Yeah. I want something better, and I didn't bring you on here to just complain about traffic.
It's okay.
I'm sure you get plenty of that.
Sure.
But at the same time, I think it's huge for us, you know what I mean? And I know that the southern part of Middletown, the southwestern part of Middletown, I can see the development there. I know that larger stores are coming.
Sure,
I know that this isn't going to get better.
Right.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, what is being done to do it? I travel to Maryland a lot for work, and I look at Howard County, which is a beautiful county. And I understand that Howard County is also a very wealthy county.
It is.
But at the same time, it was a planned county. And there are so many things around there, and traffic flows easily, and I'm thinking, why can't we in Delaware, one of the smartest states that I know, figure this out?
Well, and the other phenomenon too, and you mentioned Howard County is a perfect example, because I actually grew up in Montgomery County, right outside DC, so I'm familiar with that area. So when that community was planned, there was the understanding that a lot of those residents were going to be commuting to whether it be DC or maybe Baltimore or what have you. The phenomenon that you and I are seeing in our community is the fact that there's very few jobs. So what's ending up happening, and I see it firsthand every day, is a lot of these folks are relocating from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, maybe some from Maryland. They're continuing to work in their previous location. So that means they need to get from point A to point B and back again.
Right.
But you're right. We've taken none of that into account. When a road starts crumbling, everybody goes, oh, shucks, we better do something with the road. No, wait a minute. Why weren't we planning to do something and budgeting, when I say planning, to do something? Because I hear time and time again, sorry, Representative, we don't have the money. Sorry, we don't have the money. We don't have the money. Wait a minute, time out. And nobody wants tax increases. And that's the rub. Right. That's the rub, of course, because a lot of these folks will come from out of state and they'll say, well, Kev, the infrastructure was so much better from where I came from. And I'll say, well, yeah, I understand that. What'd you pay in taxes? Well, we paid $15,000 a year. Well, what are you paying? What are you paying here? Well, $3,000 a year. Okay, well, do you want your taxes to be raised? 300%? Well, heck no. That's why I left where I came from. So it's a little bit of a phenomenon. But at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer, and I know because I've been serving in Dover for long enough. There's money there, and it's a matter of earmarking those resources towards those items in our community, which everybody will agree, we are the fastest growing school district in the entire state. So it's no great secret that we have tremendous growth, and we need to be planning for it in a much more thoughtful way than we have been.
And I understand, and I think my viewers have figured out, and I am a very staunch Democrat, but I am also very, very capitalistic and very much driven on conservative ideals. So I'm playing both sides of this. I have to say we have one of the richest corporation in the entire United States has a facility in our small town. That facility brings tremendous amounts of people and prosperity to our town as well.
Agreed.
What is their responsibility in dealing with the growth of this? I don't want to go after business.
I understand.
Please don't write in. I do not want to go after business. I want to make it as easy as we can for businesses to operate here in Delaware.
Right.
But at the same time, there's a responsibility
Agreed.
there.
Well, and I'll tell you, in that particular business's case, what the dynamic turned out to be as far as their responsibility goes. So when they came to town, and keep in mind, I mean, they're in the town limits, so therefore the dynamics is a little different than having to perhaps, speak to the county or the state or whatever. But my point in sharing is that in that case, they were responsible for making certain infrastructure improvements. I don't know what those were, because quite frankly, that's a little ways away out of my district. But they are responsible for making some infrastructure improvements as it related to that immediate area coming in and off of 299. However, it's my understanding that that was the extent of their obligation. So in other words, when you've got, I think I know they work 2 shifts, they're probably working 3 shifts over there, particularly this time of year. You've got vehicle traffic coming and going, wear and tear on our infrastructure as taxpayers, because a lot of these people may not even live in Delaware.
Right.
And so perhaps there needs to be a look at perhaps expanding and like you said, I mean, it's a fine line. We have to offer the businesses the incentives to get them here, but at the same time, perhaps there needs to be a more thoughtful look at, okay, once you're operating, Mr. Business, you're going to be bringing X number of people. Those people, again, they're going to be, patronizing our local restaurants and buying gas from us, and that's all good stuff. But they're running up and down our roads, and they're paying tolls in some cases. But that's wear and tear on the infrastructure. So why do you and I, as locals, if you will, why should we bear the brunt of responsibility when everybody, there are a ton of other folks that are out there using our roads?
I can't agree more. But while we're talking about employers, what are we doing to bring more jobs to Middletown? You brought it. You said it yourself.
Yep.
Everybody goes, we are a bedroom community.
We are.
We are a bedroom community, and I attest. I'm one of the people who leave every day.
Sure.
Not so much now because of COVID.
Right.
But what are we doing? Or what are you doing as our representative to bring in more jobs to that area?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, the Delaware Prosperity Partnership, the initiative under the governor initiated. Kurt Foreman is the director.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because some of our viewers may not know.
Okay, great. Yeah. So the Prosperity Partnership is an ad hoc group that's made up of a number of different folks in government, folks in private industry, business-minded type individuals that come together for the purposes of trying to identify business opportunities, i.e. who can we attract to the state of Delaware.
Right.
That's their sole purpose, and Kurt Foreman and his team.
And they work hand in hand with Dito?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
All
yes,
right.
Thank you for the clarification. Yes, they work hand in hand with Dito for the purposes of trying to bring in, folks. And with that, obviously, comes typically some tax incentives and some other types of incentives. Because we're competing with a lot of other, entities or locations, if you will. But that's their sole purpose. So having said that, they've been successful. I'll give you a perfect example. There's a pharmaceutical company, which you may or may not have heard of, that's coming to Middletown.
No, I wasn't aware of that.
They're coming to Middletown. They're going to be located on the west side of town, over by Amazon and the others over there we were talking about. Bringing with them about 500 good, solid paying jobs. I mean, we're talking average, I've been told average wage of $50,000 to $60,000 a year, so good paying jobs. Now, one of the reasons why they chose our area, again, in the town limits, is because the town of Middletown has really developed a knack for approving these types of projects quickly. And, for a business, time is money. Part of the challenge we've had in the past, with all due respect to my friend, the county executive and others, is that the county sometimes has been, folks have been critical of the county saying, it takes too long, I'm not going to sit here and wait. I'm just going to take my business across the line to Maryland or to Pennsylvania.
Somewhere that has an express line to help me through this.
Exactly. And the whole idea, a part of the idea with the Delaware Prosperity Partnership was to create that express line. I mean, they've been successful in other areas of the state, I know. But first and foremost, obviously, I pay attention to home most all the time. And that one project, and I can't remember the name of the company or I would share it, it's public knowledge. They are coming to Middletown in the near future. But, you know, like you said, I mean, we've got to have the infrastructure. You ask somebody, perfect example, let's say you were asked somebody to locate their business over on the east side of 13, okay? And they'd say, well, where's the nearest grocery store? You go,
oh, that was going to be my next, that was going to be my next subject.
It's coming.
I've heard that, Representative Hensley, I've heard that. I see dirt being moved from one side to the other.
Yep.
We'll deal with that in a second.
Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. But the point of the matter being is that I kind of knew we were going to go there. But the infrastructure in that area, there's really none. I mean, if you don't get gas in Odessa today, and things are going to change because the Wawa's moving, but if you don't get gas in Odessa, I mean, you're stuck till you get over the bridge.
Right. Well over the bridge.
Well over the bridge. Yeah, you got to get off on 72, and then you got to, it's not right there either.
Right.
So that's created some challenges for us. But at the end of the day, you know, Middletown, that west side of town where the Walmart is and so forth, I mean, there's not that much ground left over there.
No, there isn't.
So at some point in time, there's going to need to be a direction, a refocus on, okay, where do we identify these, you know, these growth areas? I mean, businesses, you know, a fellow constituent of ours called me a couple months ago. It's a family-owned business. They're based out of Maryland. He wants to build in the Middletown area, ideally. Kevin, what kind of ideas you got? So we were talking a little bit about, you know, what they do and so forth and so on, what type of ground they would need, and there's just not, you know. But his attraction was it's largely a delivery business, loves the access to 95. You know, you've got 301 to run down into Maryland because again, he's got customers in Maryland. So the location for so many people is prime, but whether let's say infrastructure, I mean, I've had businesses tell me, you know, we didn't come here because we weren't comfortable with the schools. Now that's not necessarily so much, and with all due respect.
They said that about Middletown?
They did not.
Oh, okay.
Talking about other areas of the county.
Gotcha.
Did not say that about, no, they all want to come to Middletown because of the schools.
Right.
That creates another problem.
I don't know what leaflet they read. But.
Yeah, they got confused. But yeah, so we don't have that issue in Middletown. Matter of fact, we have the opposite dynamic. But at the same time, for a business to locate, I mean, they're looking at, convenience for, you know, their employees, the families, whether, you know, schools, whether it be youth sports, before and after school opportunities with programs. And, you know, we've got all those, as I'm sure you well know, but we could be doing better.
Yeah, I think we could too.
I mean, we give perfect example. You know, the Boys and Girls Club, they get tired of hearing from me because every time I see them, when can we do something in Middletown? When can we do something in Middletown? They had a facility in Middletown. They were leasing it. Lease ran out. Owner didn't renew the lease, and they just left. And they've tried a little bit of partnering with the district, using some of their buildings, but it's not what I would suggest to be a full-fledged Boys and Girls program that I'm used to seeing up here in Wilmington.
Could we get a PAL down there?
Sure we could.
I think we could. I think it would be great for
Absolutely.
the community, and I see nothing but benefit with that.
Tremendous benefit. I mean, here we are, we're building a new library. That should have been built 20 years ago.
Right.
I mean, we're building a YMCA. They've been operating out of a temporary facility for a decade now. That should have been probably up to, and so with some of those opportunities may come some youth programs, but, you know, I mean, my colleague, Majority Leader Longhurst, works for PAL. I mean, that's what she does. And she and I have had many conversations about I said, I've got the kids.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the kids.
Right.
It's the old, you build it, they will come.
Right.
We've got plenty of kids. And like I said, I know in talking to parents, I mean, in a lot of cases, they're just sort of, bumping them from point A to point B, just trying to figure out opportunities. Tremendous potential for a PAL in Middletown.
Representative Hensley.
Yes.
I read a lot. Part of this gig is you have to be well informed on everything, right? But I did not know what a food desert was, right? And there are places in this country that have horrible food deserts where they have to go miles upon miles upon miles to access food, but then access the right food. I understand that that's an issue. But it's interesting Middletown kind of has one too.
We do. We do.
And you think that, you know, I don't know what the consensus is as far as salary ranges of the people that live in our area and the whole 9 yards. I'm sure you have those metrics. But you wouldn't think that a food desert would be where we are, right? So I know that there will be several people from Middletown watching this on whatever device, or because they can't watch it on Comcast. So
true.
So you know, they'll have these questions. Why is this occurring in Middletown? And what are we doing to fix it?
Sure. Well, you bring up a great point. Fast forward. Drop back to when COVID just started last year. And I come up with this idea because I was hearing the same thing time and time again. Talking to my good friends over at the MOT Senior Center. They serve hundreds of our seniors every week come to get food. So I came up with this idea of doing a food drive. I visited 44 communities in 2.5 weeks. From 7 to 10 every morning, I'd pick the communities, you know, almost like a Toys for Tots. I'm going to be in this community or that community. And I'd go basically drive streets and pick up food. Collected thousands of pounds of food. Unbelievable. And I remember saying to this director at the senior center, this is going to be enough to last you a year. She said, Kevin, we'll be lucky if this lasts us a month. Pretty indicative of, like you said, when I first came to Middletown, I didn't think we had an issue, but it's amazing that we do, and we do. And, you know, there are churches and the like that are constantly, you know, have the food pantries that are running dry, that I get the phone calls, hey, can you bring over some food, or can you give us a donation so we can go buy some food? I mean, it's amazing because, like you said, it's not, sometimes some people kind of take a step back and go, well, you know, gosh, maybe that's a city of Wilmington issue. Maybe that's a city of Dover issue. It is not. It is everywhere. And like you said, it's right in our hometown. And I think, you know, we need to be conscious of it and do everything we can do to make certain.
What are some things that people can do in the community and throughout the state, because the whole state gets this broadcast, and there's big hearts all through these 3 counties. So what can they do to help with that?
Well, and I think first and foremost, as opposed to trying to recreate the wheel, is to identify those opportunities that are currently within their community that already provide the outreach. For instance, the senior centers, churches, you know, entities like that. Find out if they're providing and step up and either volunteer to help distribute, bring food. I mean, it's not just a matter of just bringing the food. I mean, one of the favorite things that I do every year is volunteer delivering meals from the Modern Maturity Center in Dover. I've also delivered meals for Middletown, MOT Senior Center. So it's not just getting the food to them, it's preparation, it's distribution. I mean, it's amazing the network. So if somebody's looking to get involved, I would first reach out to one of those groups that may be in their community already and say, hey, I'm here, what can I do to help?
Well, I want to go on record as saying you have DETV's assistance in anything that you may need in helping families and helping people getting food in the stomachs. So we are here to help you with that.
I'm glad.
The second part to that question is, when is Middletown going to get another supermarket? Now, people may think that, oh, well, that's just gibberish. But you know what? There isn't one on that side of town. That deals with infrastructure. You can't tell me that doesn't deal with infrastructure. That other part about that is there are people being affected by that.
Sure there are. Sure there are.
What is being done?
Well, I'm going to tell you it's coming, and you're going to say, "Oh,
here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. Here we go."
But it is. And you indicated there's some dirt being moved around at the corner of Bayview Road and 13. That's going to be a shopping center with an anchor being a grocery store. Everybody asks me who it is. Don't know yet, but it's been approved for a grocery store. You're going to have some other retail there. That's a planned, it's going to happen. Love to know when, love to be able to speed it along.
As always, thank you for taking the time to be on the agenda.
It's been an honor, thank you.
I can guarantee you it won't be the last time. We have several things to talk about.
Good.
There are a few other questions that I wanted to get in, but we'll get in next time. Well, thank you to Representative Kevin Hensley for spending time with us to tell us what's going on in Middletown. Talking about its growth, its food deserts, its gas stations. Believe it or not, that is legislative. And ensuring that the residents there have a place to go, a place to prosper for generations to come. We'd like to thank Representative Hensley for taking the time to sit down with us. Let us know what's going on down there in Newcastle County. We look forward to seeing you again right here on the agenda.